Okay, we are finally to part 4 of Accidents Waiting to Happen, Salt Lake City to Detroit, Detroit to Nashville, Nashville to Little Rock, Arkansas. A week before, October 4th, loomed like a storm on the distant horizon. I was constantly looking at the tarot cards and asking the question, okay, my fear aside, are we safe on this trip? And the cards would come back with challenges and trauma, but not death. Nervous and still concerned, I head out to the Salt Lake City airport to start this East Coast tour. The dancers are arriving, there is a bit of an edge, but I am sure it is probably just me being stressed and afraid. It is hard when I feel something intuitively, but I also don't want it to be so. We all check in, and I try to have a light heart and be in a good mood, but there is something still so ever slightly off. We get on the plane, and the doors don't close on time. The minutes tick by, and we are still on the ground. Finally, the pilot comes on and says they are checking something with the engines, and it will be a moment still while they make sure everything is going to be in working order. After another 15 minutes, the pilot says we are going to disembark and take another plane because this problem will need to be fixed before the plane goes back up in the air. So we all disembark and then wait at the airport for them to bring another plane to the gate. Strike one. Finally, we load for a second time and we take off without incident, landing in Detroit, late but safe and sound, or so I think. We get into a bus to take us to the hotel in town, and I remember the astrologer Reed Dunbar said that we would have travel obstacles and difficulties a week before and a week after, October 4th. Clearly, that was one obstacle. I was grateful to the pilot who said, no, I'm not taking a plane up that he felt was unsafe or was having some issue. Relieved to be on the ground, we all get in the bus in Detroit and we are chatting away as all ballet companies do in such moments. The energy seems relaxed and excited. We have to take the bus through an underpass below a freeway, and while we are in the right lane, a big dump truck comes faster on the left to pass us, but the underpass is slightly more narrow, and suddenly there is the sound of scraping metal as the dump truck scrapes the sides of our bus. That dump truck never stopped, and dancers on that side were terrified that the glass was going to break, but amazingly it just scraped the bottom metal panels of the bus. After we are through the underpass, the bus stops, and the driver takes a look at the damage. He makes a call, and they send out another bus. Strike two. 2 incidents in a matter of hours. That now seems more odd, or some coincidence? We go to do the shows in Detroit, and one of the dancers on his day off decides to rent a car and go to see his friends and family up north along the coast, and he gets into a car accident and breaks his arm. And so now he can't perform. Strike 3. By this point, I'm getting nervous, and I'm thinking, what the hell? We do the performances, everything's fine in Detroit. The big day comes, October 4th. We are flying from Detroit to Nashville. Then we are doing a transfer so we can fly from Nashville to Little Rock. I am secretly going to the bathroom at the airport and pulling cards to see if we are going to be okay. The cards show that something will happen, but we will be okay and no one is going to die. I consider that good enough for this particular day. We load the plane and take off with no problem. Whew, what a relief. The flight is fine until we begin to land. The pilot comes on and says that the planes are backed up in Nashville, so we are going to have to circle a bit before we land, and this is in the olden days, and he says that the stewardess is going to come around with more drinks. We circle for a while, but what the pilot is not saying is that there is a terrible thunderstorm happening, and that is why the planes are backed up. Finally, he says we've been cleared to land, but that the landing is expected to be bumpy, so buckle up and stay seated. Now I'm feeling more nervous. I just happen to be in the seat that I realize is the same one as in my dream. I'm in the middle of the plane. As we start to land, all of a sudden I'm not sitting in the plane again. I become the plane. It's like the dream. My eyes are the windows ahead. My arms are the wings of the plane. My body is the body of the plane. My feet are together making the tail of the plane. Ahead, I see those same 2 streaks of light directly in front of me. I hear the angels say, Give your energy and the energy of everyone here to the structure of the plane. Before I can think about it, I suddenly see energy threads that connect all of us in that moment. All that energy comes into me and then into the metal structures in the plane. That is when we hit the first wind shear. We dropped suddenly and hard. It felt like thousands of feet. It felt huge, like a drop I've never felt before in my life, probably hundreds of feet, but it felt huge. I hear the sound of metal bending. I open my eyes and I see all the ponytails of all the female dancers in the seats in front of me up in the air. Dancers are screaming in alarm. There's a feeling that we are suspended in the air, pushed up against our seatbelts. I look out the window and I see that the wings of the plane are now bent and higher than the top of the plane. That is when I am in the plane once again, and I see that we are going to hit a second wind shear as we are landing. The second one hits, and while this one is not as strong as the first one, it is still quite a drop. As we plunge towards the ground, I can feel the pilot trying to pull the nose of the plane up. Just before we land, we manage to level out, and while the landing is heavy, and we can feel the landing gear creak under the strain of the wind as we land, we manage to land without further problems. But the weather has put a big delay on all flights landing or leaving for the next hour plus. So here we are once again, delayed, and get into Little Rock much later than expected. The staff on the plane looked at me with a sort of scary look, like I was a witch, because it was close, a bit too close. And if we had hit those wind shears and been closer to the ground, it would have not been a good day. Amazingly, the dream and the reality was exactly the same. I thank the angels for the warning that helped all of us shift through this energy off that plane, shift this energy off the plane so that the plane did not crash. I thank myself for listening and doing what I could to be a vehicle for energy from everyone on the plane to bring strength to the plane, whether that was just my personal fantasy or not. I thank the pilots for their skill in landing in such a terrible weather and saving all of us. I thank for all the forces that came magically together that allowed us to land safe and sound. I learned that day that even if we are unconscious, we can contribute our energy to the structures around us and bring better balance towards a better outcome. I learned that day that we are never alone and that angels and guides are constantly with us trying to help us find pathways through the density of life and dangerous moments. I learned that messages that come through in dreams can be very real, and we should train our mind to pay attention and, in some cases, believe what we are being told, especially if in a dream you can suddenly read something on a piece of paper.